Over the past few months, so much has changed. There have been ups and downs, and unfortunately the downs have not been great. It's James Thornton, and welcome to my update vlog. Let's go. It has been 2 months since my last video, my journey with sexuality and dyspraxia, which I will link in the description, and so much has changed. It's unreal. As I said in the intro, there have been so many ups and downs. So I've got a list of what I'm going to talk about here, and rather than list them out now, you'll see on the timeline it's in sections. So you can just scrub over the timeline, and if you want to skip things, well, I won't know. So I'll talk about my university plans first. So in my previous video, I talked about routine and how important it was for me to have a routine, to have structure in my life. And part of that was applying for a master's in graphic design. Now, I didn't mention it in the previous video because I wasn't 100% certain that's what I was going to do. But I worked so hard to apply for masters in graphic design. And the reason, I have a BA in jazz, and halfway through studying on my BA in jazz, I realised I wanted to do graphic design and IT support. And the musicians that I was studying with, they were phenomenal. And having dyspraxia, I felt like there was a certain limit to what I could do, and I found it really, really tough. Especially having social anxiety as well, that didn't help things. So I felt like going back and studying a master's would be kind of a redeeming thing, because I would love studying graphic design and I would be able to socialise. I'd have interesting things to bring to the conversation when socialising with the people on the course. So I put so much effort into it. With my new routine, I worked so hard. You have no idea how much effort I put into it. I would show you my folder, but I'm sure you don't want to see it. It has all the different personal statements. Each different university I applied to wanted something slightly different in their personal statements. So I did that. I worked on my portfolio, had fictitious briefs where I was to design logos, slogans, names for a company, which I put on my portfolio website. And I applied for 7 different universities, and 4 of them rejected me, 3 of them accepted me. So the problem that I had was, of the 4 that rejected me, 2 were the ones that I liked the most. The course content was great, the location was great. The problem with the 3 that accepted me is, 1, I had thought was in person. I'd seen on their website it was online, and I'd rang them and they said, oh no, that was due to COVID. They're in person now, so don't worry about it. But then, after I got accepted onto the course, I had further communications with them and they said, oh no, it's online. Then the other 2 I applied to, I looked at the course content, it was very research heavy, and there was hardly any practical work. And that was really, really depressing for me, because I wanted to, do practical things. And writing a dissertation, doing all these things research-based, these research methods that I had to come up with, they just weren't me at all. And I felt like I would just be burnt out, even after a few months of doing the course, and it wouldn't be inspiring, which led me on to the idea of doing a HND. So I'd done a HND before, and the courses that I looked at, they were really, really good. They really, really suited me, what was being taught. The problem was, because I was applying so late in the year, a lot of these courses had closed, and some of them were available through clearing, but the tutors were on holiday, and even some of the admin staff were on holiday as well. And so that meant there were slim pickings. And to me, I didn't like that. I didn't like the idea of being boxed into a corner. You have to choose this course because it's the only one that's open, or it's in clearing, the course that is one of your preferred courses, but you have to wait until September until the tutors come back and they review your application, and then you won't know. And so I had then made the decision that I would do my HND the year afterwards, and that I get a job working at an Apple store. Now, the reason I decided to get a job working at an Apple store was because I know Apple so well. I used to be an Apple fanboy who just loved every single thing Apple, and so it would be just really easy for me. I would be in my comfort zone, and given the previous job that I was in, where I'd spent time working at the checkouts, I'll talk more about that in a second, I felt like I wouldn't have any issues being able to interact with the customers, and any questions that they would ask me about Apple, I would be well able to answer them. So I had decided that I would work at an Apple store when I was talking about doing a HND this year, and that I'd work at the Apple store part-time. But I realised doing the HND and working at Apple, I'd need time off to study that wouldn't be in college or in the institution that I'd be doing my HND in, and that would mean that I'd only have like 1-2 days to work at Apple, and I just didn't like that idea. So studying the next year and working full-time at Apple really appealed to me. But then the most amazing opportunity presented itself to me. My best friend Didi, who owns a juice bar in North London, which is in front of my old workplace, offered me a job as her manager. Now, in my old workplace, I did graphic design, IT support, and social media. And during the COVID pandemic, kind of nearer towards the end, people had gotten furloughed and they needed support at the checkouts. So that's where I moved to. And I was really terrified at the beginning. What if I made a mistake? What would the customers think? Would they think, what's he doing? Why is he making so many mistakes, you know? And when you're at the checkouts, this was one of the fears that I had for so many years of my life. Serving customers at the checkouts, what would I do? How would I interact with them? I'd be so nervous. What if someone gave me some money and I gave them the incorrect change? I was so worried about that, but, you know, I just got used to it. It became like second nature. I got to know the customers. I went out people's alcohol problems, people that spent way more than they should have on lottery tickets or scratch cards. But I eased into the role. I understood what was needed so well because I just did it every day and I listened and I interacted with the customers, and that made things really easy for me because, I don't know, you have something that in the past you would have been so nervous about and you're so comfortable with it and you don't even realise, and one day you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that I used to be so nervous about this. And that was the thing. I didn't realise how comfortable I had gotten working at the checkouts. And suddenly one day I'm like, oh my God, I used to be so scared of this. It's incredible, you know? And so Didi saw that. Didi saw my good customer service skills, how well I knew the customers, how relaxed I was. And when I say I have good customer service skills, I'm not being cocky, I'm not trying to brag. It's just at this moment particularly, the world is a really bad place. There's so much hate going on in the world, and you just need to bring a little bit of love, a little bit of kindness out there. And I know I've seen customers that have gone through some pretty tough times whilst I've been at the checkouts, and they just need a friendly face. Of course, you know, it doesn't mean that you don't stand up for yourself. You know, I think you do occasionally have to stand up for yourself, and whilst the customer is always right, sometimes a customer's behaviour, you have to be able to stand up and say that behaviour is not acceptable, that's not right, because it goes against who you are as a person. For me, sometimes customer behaviours do go against who I am as a person, and I've got to stand up for it. So she saw that. She saw how much I interact with the customers, how well I know the customers, and thought of this as a great opportunity. And so did I. So did I. But like the thoughts of working at the checkout, it scares me. It scares me, will I get the juices right? There's a cleaning process that needs to be followed. Will I understand the customers' needs? You know, will I know who the regular customers are? So when they come, I don't have to keep asking, what's their name? I'm terrible at names, by the way. And what number juice do you have? But I think, like the previous workplace, I will really ease into the role. I'll get to understand the customers. I'll get to understand the people who work locally, the ones who come daily, get to understand, oh, you usually come on a Monday, but you're here on a Tuesday. You know, get to that level of understanding of the customers. I think it'll take a bit of time, but you know what? As much as I feel nervous about it, it will get so easy, and I'm actually really looking forward to it. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Netflix TV series Heartstopper, which is based on graphic novels of the same name by Alice Osman. It focuses on two schoolboys, Nick Nelson and Charlie Spring. Nick Nelson is in the rugby team. He hangs out with the popular kids. They're bullies, they're homophobic, and it's him realising his feelings for Charlie, realising that he's hanging out with the wrong people, they're not the right people for him, realising his bisexuality, who he really is, and Charlie, he is in a relationship with someone who's closeted, he's not, and that person makes him feel really bad about himself, and it's him getting the strength to define himself and stand up for himself, and I think it's such a beautiful TV show. The storyline is incredible, the acting, the cinematography, little bits from the graphic novel in the cinematography is just fantastic. And they're so young, they're so insecure at times, and it's just so cute, them going on a journey to discover themselves. And it made me think about when I was around 15, 16, 17, you know, that's the kind of age that they're portraying. They're 18 and 19, Kit Connor and Joe Locke. Joe Locke plays Charlie Spring, Kit Connor plays Nick Nelson. And when I was that age, I didn't have that kind of representation on TV. If there were any gays on TV, it would be kind of the token gay guy. You can shut up, we have a gay person. And let's say there's a storyline of this guy that falls for this woman, and then there's this other guy that also falls for this woman, and they're fighting for this woman so passionately, and suddenly there's this scene where they're faced head on, and it ends up in a passionate kiss. And instead of what if they're bisexual, what if they're interested in women and men, it's nope, actually they're gay, and there's no thought about it. And what I love about Nick Nelson in Heartstopper is he's bisexual. He comes to terms with his bisexuality, and he comes out to his mum. It's the most beautiful scene. Olivia Colman plays his mum, and he says, I'm interested in men and women. And she says, are you sure? You don't have to say you're interested in women if you're not. And he says, I am. I've researched it. It's something called bisexuality, and they have the most beautiful hug. It's fantastic. And Yasmine Finney, I don't know what character she plays, I don't remember the name, but she's transgender. And what I love about that is trans representation, because we need a lot more of that in TV, and it's a really diverse cast, which is something we need. We need more diversity, we need more bisexuality, we need more transgender people in TV, because then we can start to destigmatize these people, because there is so much hate. There's transphobia, there's biphobia, there's racism still present, even though it's 2022. The final thing I wanted to tell you about is after 7 years, I have a new MacBook Pro. So from 2016 to 2018, the MacBooks haven't really deserved the Pro name, given the fact that the keyboards have been so disastrous, the limited port selection. Well, I wanted to tell you that has all changed. The keyboards are a lot better on these new devices. You have ports, you have a phenomenal display, so let's go through it. You've got MagSafe, it's back, it's Gen 3, a new version of MagSafe, which, oh, it's so great to see it, because it was such a fantastic invention of Apple's to just remove it. It's really silly. You've got two Thunderbolt 4, you've got headphone jack with support for high impedance audio. On the other side, HDMI 2.0. It could be 2.1, but you're probably only going to be connecting it to TVs, so it doesn't matter, because the Thunderbolt 4 can support so many different, like VGA, HDMI, DVI, Thunderbolt 2, DisplayPort, you know, and it's got data transfers of 40 gigabytes per second. That's incredible. So you've got that, of course, USB 4, and then I've got it written down here. I was going to do a video on it, but I wasn't feeling in the best of moods when I got this, and so anyway, yeah, it's got an SDXC card slot in there, and so it is fantastic. The display, you'll see in my notes here, is 120 Hz. It's ProMotion, so that means it's adaptive. So if you're doing something like video editing, it can go up to 120 Hz, and if you're just viewing photos, then the frame rate will drop all the way down, so you are saving on battery life. It's more efficient. It's great. It's mini LED, so better contrast, better viewing angles. It's almost 4K, the resolution. It's not quite 4K. It is, what is it? 3456 by 2234. So it's almost 4K resolution. It is just gorgeous. The battery life watching videos is 21 hours. It's incredible. And as I said, it's a new keyboard. It is a magic keyboard which takes the scissor mechanism and just improves on it. And that's from the 2015 MacBooks and prior to those. So the butterfly mechanism was the one that was so disastrous. And there were so many iterations to try and solve the problems that it had, but it didn't work. The problem was that you could easily get crumbs inside, dust inside, and the mechanism was so delicate that it would break. And unlike these keyboards where it's quite easy to lift the keycaps up and you can look inside, it's not as easy as the scissor mechanism. But on the butterfly mechanism, you couldn't do that. So you had to take it to Apple. You'd have to replace the whole keyboard, and Apple would say, I'm sorry, it looks like a problem with you. And they had many iterations, like a silicone dome underneath to stop the dust and any food getting inside, but it still ended in demise and being replaced by this keyboard, which is fantastic. And they've got full height function keys, which is something amazing, because one of the things that I didn't like about the 2016 to I think it was 2019, even the 13-inch MacBook Pros that are out now, they have a touch bar, which, well, temporarily replaced the function keys. So that would mean whatever application you were using, that the options available would change. But the tactile feel of the function keys is something that I needed. So it's still available on the 13-inch MacBook Pro, but all the others have just regular function keys, which is so great. So those are the updates, and I'll see you soon.